My name is Vilma Scott, and I came to England in June of 1964. I landed at Heathrow and was taken to, Waterloo Station. I was taken to Waterloo Station by British Council members who met me there and put on a train to Southampton. I really thought it was a lovely train. I didn't know until years later that it was the Pullman. It had lovely seats at the back. You were served with lovely sandwiches, and I just thought, this is wonderful. I arrived at Southampton Terminal, and there was someone waiting for me from the hospital, and then I got into the car with them and we went to Moor Green to meet the matron.
That's Moor Green Hospital.
But it's still a big place that's been used for different things and housing and all that. Can you remember?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that was where I spent my first 6 months in nursing. I wouldn't say it was pleasant. Didn't understand a lot of things that were happening because they were all old people in this hospital. I thought, is this what a hospital is like? They're all old. And they needed an awful lot of care. To me, it was backbreaking work because you had to lift them everywhere and things like that. There was a pub across the road. I don't know if you can remember. There was a pub just as you came out from Moor Green. Yeah. So we call them bars where I come from. So we used to go over to the pub in the evenings when we were off and buy bottles of cider and got back to the nursing home.
Moor Green was a geriatric unit.
And we had a wonderful time. But unfortunately, one of our friends got knocked down one night crossing the road, and she was nearly killed. She wasn't, but nothing came from it because it was said that she was black and they never saw the person. And but thank God she was able to walk after that, but she dragged her leg and her eyes wasn't too good. And that was my first 6 months, and then we had to pack up our stuff and we went to the Royal Southamptons. And that was where we spent another 6 months, where we then met young people in hospital because it was medical and it was surgical. And the top floor was where they had cancer patients, right at the top there. That was good experience. And I remembered one morning we came off duty and there was this car parked by what used to be the mortuary, because you came out through these flapping doors and the nursing home was over there, and this car was parked there and it was done up with a whole load of toilet paper.
Oh no.
It was meant to be one of the doctor's cars. He was furious, but it was done really lovely, like a nice big bow all round it. We were able to have fun in the nursing home because we made our own fun. We used to have beauty contests at nights. Got your bathing suits on and the judges sat round the corner. I've got loads of photographs of it. And posed and walked and things like that. And, who won, we put a crown around their head and things like that. You had to make your own fun. Yeah. We had a very good matron. She came from Australia. And she knew that we needed to have fun and see people. And so what she did for us, she went over to Marchwood. Remember the soldiers had and asked them if they were having parties, to invite us. And a coach would take us from Moor Green or from the Southamptons, and we would go have a wonderful night out and come back.
Yeah. Right. Let me tell you my story. Yeah. My name is Jayanti Shah. I came to end of August 1968. Took a flight from Nairobi, a chartered flight via Benghazi to Luton Airport. And then I took a green country bus from Luton Airport to London, stayed with a distant cousin for 3 or 4 weeks, and then took a train from Waterloo to Southampton. The Students' Union were there to pick me up. Went to Southampton University because I'd done my A-levels in Kenya. Went to Southampton University, and really, compared with you, it was closeted because you had Hall of Residence, stayed there. And when I graduated in 71, at the time the British government had industrial training boards, and there was an engineering industrial training board. So everybody who employed engineers paid a levy to the training board, and the training, they can claim that money back by training people. So I spent 18 months traveling around the country under the auspices of Procter & Gamble, and traveling around the country as 2-week project training everywhere. Came back to Southampton, and did some research at mechanical engineering department and then medical engineering department, joints and airways, flow of air through the lungs, etc. And that was until about 1981, 82. And then I set out on my own because it was sort of Margaret Thatcher was in power, and hospital was not considered to be a right places for anybody other than doctors and nurses. So all of my team lost their jobs, and I set up on my own since then. But it's quite interesting because my first memory of coming to UK end of August is the grass was being cut by machinery. You know, hedges were being cut by machinery, etc. Whereas in Kenya, it was all done manually. Roadworks, tarmac, etc. was all done by motorized vehicles. Whereas in Kenya, you get all steamrollers and running. So that is extremely vivid memory of what happened. Now, university, during the school holidays, during the university holidays, I worked in motor car place in Coventry, what was Roots Motors at the time. One summer, the second summer, I went back to Kenya. But interesting that as a British passport holder, you needed visas to come to Britain at the time.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I mean, you were sponsored by British Council. By the way, Vilma.
No, I wasn't. I came just as an ordinary citizen, but
British Council
I came
hostel.
on a student visa. That's correct.
Yeah,
yes,
British
I
Council
came.
hostel, just as a matter of interest. You know where you used to go to British Council
I
building?
know. That's
yeah, I own that building now.
That's where they
Northland Road.
introduced us to come to all
The dance floor is still there. But again, other memories during the university days, food.
Oh.
Bland is not an operative word, but you know, if you needed spices or you needed something, you had to go out of your way to try and get it. And you came round to Derby Road area or the Northumberland Road area in Southampton to get those. So the trips to Derby Road area and Northumberland Road area were all specific to get. But being at university and being in Swedling, very rarely did we venture out to town. Only time we went to town was, I remember the first winter, went out to buy myself a coat, and that's about the only time where we went out to do that. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Manoj Patel. I came to UK on the 1st of April 1973. Before I came here, I went to India. I was one of the East African nations who got thrown out by Idi Amin. After spending 6 months in India, I came to UK. We landed at Stansted Airport, and we were met by the Customs and Excise people, and we were taken to Kent, West Malling, where the army barracks was. This is where a lot of the Asians were housed, along with other Asians who were also in other army barracks, like Kent, Newbury, and further up north as well. So after spending 4 months in West Malling camp, we came to Southampton, and it was quite an eye-opener, as I had never seen so many multicultural people in Southampton. Because when we were in East Africa, we knew the African people and our Asian people. It was the first time I had met people from West Indies, Barbados, Caribbean islands, and it was really nice to meet so many different people and people from Pakistan, Bangladesh. Because yes, we did have people from Pakistan and Bangladesh, but they weren't around in the Uganda area. But Southampton certainly was a good experience, and we felt quite well at home, which was really nice, because leaving Africa was a terrifying experience at that time. So coming here, we settled in quite well, and Southampton has really grown in terms of multicultural. We've got over so many hundred communities, so many different languages being spoken now.
Well, it's just a changed city from the one I knew when I first came here.
Very changed.
I mean, yours was earlier, 4 or 5 years. I mean, I remember when coming in 68, very, very few black people around, black or Asian people around. Yours, by the time you came, it started to change. And then I think it's 149 languages being spoken in Southampton at the moment. But I think at the end of the day, it's making it home. It carries the responsibility of looking after your areas, etc. And I think most of the people who came in 60s and 70s have taken that on board.
Yes, I always think that we made it easier for immigrants to come to Southampton, the Afro-Caribbean people, because we were here longer.
Yeah.
Do you not think so?
Well, yes and no. I think what happened is a lot of people came to Southampton and took a train straight to London. When they came off the ships. Yeah, and there's a famous joke about there are so many bakeries in UK because all the houses are chimneys.
Coming on the train, I just sat there thinking,
how many bakeries are there?
They have lots of bakeries here. Because that's the only place we saw chimney smoke coming out from in the Caribbean.
But even at that time, the air was dirty. It is a lot cleaner than it was. There was fog, smog, etc., which existed in Southampton, but it's a lot more cleaner now.
I wouldn't say we were wholly accepted in the 60s, but because there were Afro-Caribbean people living in houses down in this area, I felt it made it easier for even myself when I came here in 64, because I was able to find some, like, hairdresser, because our hair is different, it needs different thing. You had to find someone.
Yeah.
And it was people who had more or less settled here a bit. And I found that very good for being in a new country. I wasn't always... you talk about the food? I'll tell you what, I was ill for nearly 3 months after I came here. I just could not eat the food in the nursing home. I just could, because I'm not one of these people that will eat for the sake of eating. I have to look at it and think, oh, that's nice, and I will eat it. And it was the strangest thing. One day, it was a Sunday, and it was roast beef is the dinner in the dining room. And I got off duty, hungry, darted to the dining room, sat down. No, we didn't sit down. You went up and you had your plate. They gave you the roast beef, and the rest of the stuff was on the table, the vegetables and roast potatoes. Well, I looked at this roast beef, and it wasn't as white as this, but it was nearly as white. And the slice, I think I could see Jamaica through it. And so I went and I said, oh, and this great big Yorkshire pudding, that's it, I forgot that. And I went to the dining table. We used to sit like 4 together. And I sat there and I looked at this thing and I thought, I had some carrots. And I was never a potato person, even till this day. I'll eat 1 or 2 roast potatoes, but I am just not a potato person. And I looked at the potato and I thought, got to eat something, because I was at the General at this time, and there's nowhere there you can get anything to buy or to eat. So I just picked at this, and someone said, "Do you want your beef?" And I said, "No, do you want it?" "Yes." And I thought, how's this gonna go? Because I just cannot eat a lot of the things that are being presented. And then what annoyed me one day, I said to the staff nurse, "What's for lunch?" And she said, "Salad." And I said, "Salad?" And she really went arsey with me. She went,
it's interesting.
"Don't you know salad?" And I said, "Oh, I do know salad.
Yeah,
but I have that with my meal. It is part of my meal."
Yeah. But it's interesting that you talk about food. I mean, you had a sort of canteen type of, so did I, in the whole of residence. But being a vegetarian in that context was completely, the only thing they could offer me was omelette, and I didn't eat eggs either. I don't know whether you had that sort of, Manoj, whether you had that sort of experience, but it is very, very interesting. It is, one, there was no spices. You ended up eating bread rolls and potatoes and things like that. And secondly, today you can buy anything, anywhere. And that has changed. But also going back to early 60s, I think black people in certain parts of the town used to get stares. They were noticeable. They were treated. It doesn't happen anymore, which is a change for better. So, but certainly, people were at best very curious about the newcomers, and at worst, they were very offensive.
Oh yes.
Yeah, but I put it down to curiosity. But but that change has happened because of, as you said, people said. Trailblazers setting that. But what is more important is making it happen. The sadness of it is the present generation, youngsters, think it is all that on a plate.
Yes, yeah. They just feel, well, in a way, I don't blame them, because I know the same thing happens in Jamaica with the generation after me. They decided they're not going to put up with what their parents had to put up with.
Vilma, it must be very nice if somebody said thank you to you for being the first one. And,
Yes.
Well, you felt wanted, didn't you?
Yeah.
You felt welcomed.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I don't know, about these new foreign people coming in the area or workplace or whatever. I think it's because they just were not used to us. Then once they get to know you, you start talking to them, and once they get a taste of your food, it's actually quite nice that they like it. With your experience of your workplace canteen food, we had a similar experience in Kent when we came. It was very plain, very bland. And to make it interesting, you used to sprinkle as much black pepper as possible, and that changed the whole thing. I remember the time when everybody in the camp was so fed up with having boiled food every day that a group of people went to the management and said, "Look, this is very nice, but we can't hack this anymore. We need something that we are used to." So then they said, "Okay, what do you want?" They said, we want chapatis." "Okay, so what's it made of?" "Well, it's made of flour. We eat flour and this flour there." And then they investigated. They brought bags and bags of flours in, and the group of guys started making chapatis in the canteen, and that was a godsend. We wanted chapatis. 3-4 months.
Here comes the roti.
Yeah, and then the staff started eating as well. That was
they would.
Well, that was their first experience of Indian food.
But
And I loved it.
the difference, your generation to Vilma and my generation, the difference is that
tell you
you
about
went to
that one.
school.
Yeah.
You went to school here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
Whereas
different.
I came in as a young adult.
You went straight to university, college
etc.
level.
So
Yeah.
what you were subjected to in school is completely different to
Yeah.
what you would be. But I mean, I remember first time going to a shop.
Yeah.
My best purchase
Yeah.
in terms of shopping after the overcoat for the cold was an umbrella.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't do without an umbrella. You got to have an umbrella. And I felt so proud walking around with an umbrella, pretending to be an Englishman.
Well, it was part of your dressing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
A tie. You know, even I remember my neighbour, Mr. Brown, he would wear a tie on a Sunday. Even if he went out in the garden, he would have a tie on. He was doing gardening with a tie on.
Was he West Indian?
No, it was English. Yeah, it was English.
Yes, this is very true. It's very different. Their whole attitude was different then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But do you know what? I'll tell you something about shopping, and this is in the 70s. British Home Store had a shop on the high street.
Yep.
And they had a delicatessen at the front. So I'm off there to get some sliced ham and things like that. And you know how people crowd round, because it wasn't you, it was you stood there, but you knew when it was your turn. And the person behind the counter, she turned around, she looked around, she saw me there, and then she said, "Who's next?"
Yeah.
So I looked at her, and this lady behind me said, "That lady is next. She's standing there." So she asked me what I wanted, but I was so angry. I did tell her what I wanted.
Yeah.
But when she turned her back to slice the ham, I just walked away.
Do you remember, you talk about delicatessen, do you remember when Tyrrell and Green was in the high school?
Yes.
And they had a cafe at the top
Yes.
with cream cakes.
That was posh.
Yeah, it was posh. It was a treat.
Yes.
Every nobody went up and had cream cakes and tea.
Cost.
Tea and cake and all that stuff.
Well, when you went out, it was a real luxury to have
It was.
tea.
I think,
It was like going to a restaurant, and going to a restaurant was a real luxury.
but relatively speaking, the cost of eating out was much higher as a ratio of income. Today, the food cost, etc., is negligible compared with what it was then. It was a luxury. It was a real treat going out. I think we had golden egg. We had beef eater.
Oh, yeah.
Beef eater steakhouse.
Steak.
Forget about vegetarian. You couldn't get vegetarian. But relative to the income, it was very expensive at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, once a month, 4 or 5 of us would decide we're going down to Tyrrell's to have tea in the tea house.
Yeah.
And we used to sit there and say, "Now, don't forget to hold the cup.
And the finger out.
Put your little finger out."
Yeah, but
And the
you don't
sli-
slur your teeth.
No.
But today-
And the slice of cake.
yeah.
And we would just sit there and make wonderful. It was just fun for us.
But
that's what we could afford. And so
But
we
today,
did that once a
it's
month.
quite, you go and get a coffee almost every half a day or something, you just, or even every hour, you don't think much of it. At that time, in 1970s, going out for coffee was, mind you, I remember one thing, middle of the night, you couldn't get anything anywhere. You
Oh no,
couldn't get a cup
everywhere
of-
was closed.
Yeah, 6 o'clock closed.
Except, if you had a car, you could go to what was the Islay Airport, now Southampton Airport, and you can buy coffee there.
Okay.
There was, because it was open 24 hours, basically, and the airport was the only place it was open.
Wages for us Do you know, I honestly can't remember, but I have kept the first pay slip I had as a staff nurse working in London. But even, I think it could have been something like £12 a month was our wages. But that was a lot of money, because as far as we were concerned, we'd already paid for our boarding, we'd already paid for our food, so that was our money.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I had a bank account at Lloyd's.
Yes.
Oh, I was saving. And we used to throw partners. Now, that's something that originated in the Caribbean. Like, the four of us are sat here now, and we say, do you want us to have a partner? And everybody would say yes. And we say, right, what can you afford? Can you afford £5 a week? Yes. So who will be the banker? So it's got to be somebody very trustworthy. I used to be their bankers. And then they used to bring me their £5 every week, and I would put it together. And sometimes we had £50. Well, somebody would get the draw that week, and then they paid, and then the next week someone else had £50, and that was how we saved. And the person who had the last draw, when the next round came, they had the first draw, so they would have £100 for themselves that they could save on. That's how we saved.
Good way of saving, isn't it?
It's something that happened, I don't know if it still does with that generation, but that was what my parents knew. My father saved in what was called...
Post office savings account?
No.
National savings?
No. They have them here too, but it was a saving thing. And that was how they saved. My parents saved. But I knew about partners and things like that. And I had one here.
That was like working together, effectively. That's what you're doing, right?
Well, yes,
You're like helping each other
and we saved. It was a saving, and people were glad when they got their draw, £50. Oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and that's going to be saving, and that sort of thing.
It's a bit like premium bonds. It's a bit like premium bonds.
Yes, but you see, the English never understood where we got the money from.
I don't think it's just English. I think if you look at present generation, that sort of accountability to each other doesn't exist anymore with black youngsters. They're more interested in what they want to do. They're not interested in having a cup of tea and they want to go clubbing, etc. It changes dynamically. But you mentioned Lloyd's Bank. I changed my account from Barclays to Lloyd's because when I was at university, Barclays was being boycotted over anti-apartheid. So that was. We also, talking about Kent, we did a demo outside the Canterbury jail where some of the Asians were housed or imprisoned for being, into inverted commas, illegals with British passports, and that was, again, there's that sort of thing, but effectively everything came back to me, to Southampton, really, and it just, I don't know what is about Southampton, because if you look at Southampton, it's little places all over the place, one part is very parochial, isn't it? It's little villages. Yet it's quite a nice city.
It is a nice city. I wouldn't leave Southampton. I was here for 3 years when I came 1964, and then I went to London for 2 years. But I would not live in London. It's not a place I would live at all.
It's a busy place.
So back I came to well, we got married in London and then came...
It's interesting because London is very small, so is Southampton. It's everything. For me, everything is within walking distance. Why did I come to Southampton instead of going to London or Manchester or Durham, etc. Why did I come to Southern University? Because I perceived it as being a warmest place. That was a perception, really.
No, I came to Southampton because I just picked it out of the nursing times that we've had in the West Indies, in Jamaica. And I thought, oh, countryside, it said.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's better than the city that I've been brought up on.
Yeah, but the whole concept of weather is quite important, isn't it? In terms of there's a romantic notion, especially what we were talking. There's a romantic notion about East Africa being warm all the time, whereas it isn't because of altitude, etc. It gets very cold in the evening. People have cardigans. Say, hold on. Same applies. The thing about Southampton was, especially where I was in university, everything was heated. You only went out and you didn't go out in the cold, really. Today it doesn't matter. At that time you did feel things when they were cold.
Well, now everything's heated, isn't it? Our cars are heated, our buildings are heated, homes are heated as well. And we wear different types of clothes and shoes and everything's so much better. Before we used to wear plastic shoes, rubber shoes as it were. But now we've got shoes with different materials, insulation.
Is it really cold? I mean, I do a lot of walking in and around Southampton. I walk everywhere.
But we've also got used to it, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is.
Warm climate.
Yeah, that's what it is. We have got used to it.
Yeah. Well,
The weather.
And we've come to learn that moaning about the British weather is not going to change anything.
Well, it's all part and parcel of living.
Yeah. So you just accept it and you just get on with your day, as it were.
In Kenya, used to go for holidays to Mombasa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was quite humid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is Britain. I sweat in Britain and I used to sweat in Mombasa. There was no difference because it was so humid.
Yeah.
And then I think it's not the temperature that affects you, it's the humidity.
Humidity, yes.
Yeah.
Because the sun in India is different. It's hot. It's not humid.
Yeah.
Here is humid.
It's dry heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's the difference.
It is hot in Jamaica, but because it's an island and we have got lovely mountain ranges,
And you got wind.
Yes, the trade winds make it much nicer.
I think we all romantically remember places of our birth as being nice and warm, but they're not really.
Because having spent some time in Miami, I know about heat. New home. It was not easy adapting.
Can I just ask you, do you feel at home in Southampton?
Yes, I do. I do feel at home.
Yeah, so, I've always wondered, somebody gets a new job doing something else, and for example, there was a hairdresser who got a job as a receptionist. 5 years later, she was still saying, I'm a hairdresser. Similarly, where is home?
Well, I have spent more of my life here than I have spent in the country I was born.
Yeah.
So I have got to call this home.
Yeah. I think there comes a point when you move to another country, if you spend more time in that country than you did in your previous country, that just automatically becomes your home.
Yes.
You sort of sink in that.
You see,
it depends on what you remember. It depends on what you remember.
But then, doesn't it have to do with the fact of how comfortable you feel with where you are?
Well, Southampton is a home.
Once you start to feel uncomfortable,
Yes.
uneasy about where you live, for whatever reason, whether it's financial security or whether it's your race or whatever, you then decide to go somewhere else. Then
Well, you don't
leaving your
necessarily
home.
go somewhere else, but you romantically think that somewhere else is better.
Well, you look, don't you?
Yeah.
You start searching.
Not only looking, it is, oh God, I can't put up with this. It was much better there.
Yeah.
I think that's a false notion. I always talk about my mother, who spent 25 years in India and 30, 40 years in Kenya and 50 years in Britain. She still thinks about India as because childhood memories are there. And I argue with her, why isn't UK your home? And part of it is how the society treats you, and part of it is what you remember romantically. I think my saying is quite simple. Southampton is my home, and I want Southampton to have the best crematorium in the world, because that's where I'm going to be cremated.
Well, me too.
East Africa was my family's home because my dad was born out there, and my grandfather went there over 100 years ago. Now, it's 100 years now. So because my dad was born out there and we had to leave the country, and he was 38 years old when we left. So we were forced to look elsewhere. So now we have to go and find a new home.
Yes.
And once we came here, I remember a time when we were here 10 years, so we could then all have British passports because we came here because my mum had a British passport. Once you go past that 10-year mark, this then becomes your home. Until then, you are still ready to move somewhere else.
But there's also a difference in it. In my case, it is by choice. Choice out of economic and political issues, but it's a choice. In your case, it's a choice out of jobs necessity. In your case, it is not a choice. It is
here.
You're made to come here, and therefore, my movement towards treating Southampton as a home has come about by geopolitical issues. The government would not give me a re-entry visa on a British passport, and no other country would give me a visa to go there. So when I graduated, the government had to do something. And it was effectively geopolitical legacy of empire, basically. How things came about. Jamaica wasn't independent when you...
Yes, Jamaica was independent when I came here, so I came...
Only just,
Yeah, I came with a Jamaican passport. My husband has never had anything but a British passport. He came here before me, so he came with a British passport. And I got citizenship pretty early. Because I was thinking about going abroad somewhere else. And I'm thinking British passport will help me. So that was how I came by my British passport. But going back to thinking about where is your home, I think that this is just me anyway. After you've lived here for a while and you've suddenly decided you are going to buy a home, this is your home. This is your home. It could be problematic too, even when you've moved into that home, because you don't know what the neighbours are going to be like and if you're going to have problems with them. It's very potluck, because the first house we lived in, they were all brand new, thank God, never had a problem. We moved just a little bit down the road into a bigger one. And we have been there since the 70s. And I have to be very grateful. At the time, I was the only black face around there. Now there are black Africans, there are few Indians, but I don't get any problem. And my feelings about it is, if I'm okay and, my neighbour is all right, I'm not going to try and make a problem for them. I don't go knocking on their doors. They don't come knocking on mine. I do have neighbours that sends me a WhatsApp and say, come have a cup of tea, both of you. And we nip over and have a cup of tea. And the same thing happens.
But if you look at Southampton, how it was then and how it just changed. I mean, I remember my first home was somewhere in Biton. I moved to the present property in 1978 and have stayed there since 1978 because it's very convenient. But I had a university friend come from United States, and we went down to Town Key. And the comment she made was, when she was at university, she didn't know it even existed.
Town Key?
Town Key, because all life revolved around university.
Yeah.
And what has happened now is it is very convenient to go to various parts of the town. Moving from Bitton to Portswood being convenient to universities, convenient to town, convenient walking distance, and exploring all the parks, whole lot. Part of it is because of age, because when you are young, you want to get into the car and go somewhere. Now that as you get older,
yes.
And walking actually allows you to do that. What has changed? I mean, I remember buses, open end, back end, jump onto the bus, having to queue, whole lot. That has changed. They've now got USBs and warm seats, etc. Being cold at the time.
They were cold, weren't they?
They were very cold
both
at the time.
ends.
Yeah.
You wrapped up very...
Yeah, and now you have to take your coat off when you get into the bus. So, what has also changed is there is a lot of traffic and there are a lot more taxis.
Because a lot of people can afford a second car.
Exactly.
Forget the first, they can afford a second car now. I remember when we moved in Northumberland Road, in our block, there's about 30 houses, and there was 2 cars.
Yeah.
One of them was a builder, and the other guy was a bus driver. And they were both well-paid jobs.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Did you have a telephone? Because I used to have to go to a phone box and put the money in to dial the number.
We never had a phone.
Yeah, and a lot of people go to other people's houses.
But my brother-in-law had a phone in his house.
So you went there.
So we used to give their number. And every time somebody wanted us, phone back in 10 minutes. Come and guess, we can't do that.
And what is more, those were the days, Vilma, when people used to put padlocks on the phone.
Yeah. Well, it's to stop the bill from
people dialing the phone.
It's to stop the kids from phoning their friends and things like that.
But that was universal. That was throughout UK. But if you look at one of the geography of Southampton is there are 3 entrances. You can't go south. There are 2 rivers. And therefore, build-up of traffic is a major problem now compared with what was the case.
Because we've got a lot more economy going. The docks has really got busy.
Yeah,
but the bottom end of the town has got really busy with all the big shops.
But even then, the lifestyle needs to change. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel quite comfortable living in Southampton. Wasn't very nice sometimes during my nursing periods, but I learned to cope with these situations as they came up. And so I can ignore them, I can walk away from them. And I'm quite comfortable actually living here. I live there and I come to church down at St. Mary's. And I have been a part of that place since the 60s. So I feel quite comfortable living, well, not working.
It's people that make it, isn't it? It's people
is.
you know, and you get to know more and more people as you go.
I wouldn't move from where I am at the moment, even if I won the polls.
You see, I will never forget, because I still continue to change. I'm never ever comfortable. I still want to improve. I still want to change, but it's getting better. I mean, when I left the General Hospital, there was one computer in the place, and that was in Treasurer's office. Yeah. Today you go there, you have to jump over bloody computers all over the place. Things like that. I think it's the people that you know, and the fact that I personally can demand a change because I want to improve my environment, which you couldn't do in the early 70s.
No.
If you were singled out and said you're a troublemaker. Yeah.
Nobody would listen, but now they do.
Yeah. Especially to me.
You will be seen as a challenging person.
Oh, they will listen. Yeah. They will listen now.
It's that change.
That has changed. And I somehow feel they realize that they have to.
I take offense to that word they.
They?
There is no us and them. They are us.
We? Well, maybe it's we then.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's been interesting, hasn't it?
Yeah. So
Very interesting.
are you comfortable in Southampton now?
I am.
Yeah.
I think
How many children have you got?
2 boys. One's 26, one's 22.
2 boys.
Yeah, 2 boys.
Young men.
Young men.
They're 2 boys.
2 boys, both born in Southampton.
2 men.
2 men. 2 young men, there you go. I've always called them boys because they're like my boys.
Indeed.
Yes.
Young men, but my boys.
Well, I'm quite comfortable because I feel I can go back to where I worked, and if there was anybody there that I knew, I could have a chat with them, and somebody will say, "Scotty, da 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 da," and then I thought, do you know, the other day I thought, well, you couldn't have been that awful person, really, because you've never had things said to you that was nasty. Do you know what I mean?
I've come across a lot of nasty things which you would expect.
Yeah,
you know,
well.
because I've taken up the cases for people.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh, love.